Myself and Mr. Joe Prezzama from the MITRE Corporation, and we'll be talking about driving business value. After that, we will go to Dr. Hashimoto, who will be talking about the multidisciplinary learning. And then finally, we'll end the session with Dr. Foltz, who will talk about end-to-end security with translation, and we'll introduce them further a little bit later. Joe and myself work for the MITRE Corporation, as I mentioned, which is a part of the federal government, basically a systems engineering think tank. And we help them in all aspects of information technology. I have a PhD from Old Dominion University in software engineering. Joseph is a associate department head with myself at MITRE in the Tampa, Florida office, and he has a master's in software engineering as well from Eatontown, New Jersey. So with that, I'd like to, we're going to tag team the first presentation, and Joe will set the context. Joseph?
Good morning. In our talk today, we're going to emphasize the idea of driving digital business value, specifically by focusing on the necessity of culture, diversity, and the use of lean, agile techniques. So let's begin by discussing the explosion taking place in the digital world today. Ready or not, the digital workplace is coming. In many cases, it's actually here. And in this new digital workplace, it's going to require businesses to consider new ways to address things like strategy, relationships, connections, governance and policy, infrastructure, and physical workspaces. But there are challenges to this. Do you ever get the feeling that technology is getting out of control? Technologists are often driven by excitement over new discoveries and their potential benefits to both society and personally. But consequently, that may be why they are not well suited to the management of those inventions, especially if they are adverse to thinking about the social consequence of their creations, which unfortunately is too often the case. The pace of digital transformation is increasing. It's changing and morphing. These changes are being driven by powerful technologies, sometimes so quickly that even safety and digital security is an issue often overlooked. According to a Harvard Business Review, in 2 years, the number of business leaders expecting significant impact from digital technologies will more than triple, from 21% today to a majority of 65%. Businesses are moving away from considering digital as simply an IT challenge and are turning to digital technologies to fortify their ability to compete. This dizzying pace of technological evolution is causing technologies to be rushed to market before they're ready. In some cases, products are ahead of their time. In others, products are ahead of their time. Engineering and execution, some examples from not so distant past are the Nintendo Power Glove, the Apple Newton, Vista, and even Google Glass. These products were thrust on consumers before they were completely ready for prime time, and they eventually paid the price. However, these days, those products that do find their way to market in a timely manner are often subject to endless revisions just to keep pace with consumer requirements. The digital world around us is in a permanent state of upgrade, not just in computing power or an endless monotony of constantly upgraded apps or services. Technologies that were once far off in the horizon, technologies that were coming to us gradually, are now here suddenly. Cloud computing is now mainstream. If you attended a technology conference over the last couple of years, it's hard to avoid the obvious buzz around cloud computing. Almost every vendor has applied the term to everything and anything imaginable. We're actually now at a point where most new software created is developed with the internet as a central component. It is now a modern software is developed and deployed and consumed in this way. So what about sensors? Have you noticed that sensors are everywhere? From your car to your refrigerator. Sensors are becoming some of the high-tech's most critical components. Manufacturers across multiple segments of the economy are designing these components into next-generation automotive, connectivity, medical monitoring, and safety equipment. Demand for sensors has surged in recent years and is forecast to climb at a double-digit pace. In a recent Gartner report, it was estimated that by 2019, citizen environmentalists will have deployed more personal sensors measuring things like air and water pollution than actual governments have in countries with well-developed economies. And now to complicate things even more, virtual reality has arrived with chatbots and artificial intelligence. Google's Wonderland is a virtual reality experience that lets users view up to 18 different retailers, like Bloomingdale's, Saks Fifth Avenue, and Tiffany's. Users can zoom in on displays and even listen to audio guides for these establishments without actually being there. In another example, artificial intelligence is being heavily experimented with in the form of chatbots. IBM Watson, in coordination with the Mall of America, have a Facebook Messenger bot called ELF. This stands for Experimental List Formulator. This bot helps visitors plan a more personalized experience to the shopping center by determining things like how much time they can have and what activities they may prefer. So you can now see how our life is changing at the pace of digital. And now there's blockchain, which suddenly has a role to play in our economy. Blockchains are ledgers like Excel spreadsheets, but they accept inputs from lots of different parties. The ledger can only be changed when there is a consensus among the group. That makes them more secure, and it means there's no need for central authority to approve transactions. Virtual currency such as Bitcoin is based on blockchain technology. For example, many of you may have kids at home playing video games, and you may have found that your kids are buying in-game merchandise like spells and swords or clothes for their avatars. Now imagine that the wealth they build up in that game could actually be worth something in the real world. Modern games have the potential to create and make use of digital items that are freely tradable on a public blockchain outside of the gaming environment. They integrate cryptocurrencies in their own economy. This is the new real cash economy, games, an economy which is open, borderless, permissionless, and decentralized. So taking all of this into account, what used to be a vision for the next decade may now be your technology roadmap for next year or even for tomorrow. We find that our customers and even our own organizations are grappling with these changes to the new digital platform. So as we dare ourselves to cope with these new challenges, we must look for new ways to harness the new reality of the ever-changing digital world. To help do this, there's an innovative model that's emerging to help characterize the new digital platform that goes beyond the traditional information technology infrastructure. This new digital platform expands across a much broader environment to include things like IT systems, which is the way things run, the Internet of Things, how things are sensed, customers, how engagement happens, there's ecosystems, which is the way you interact, and then there's the business intelligence, how decisions are made. Each of these domains is interconnected and yet independent. They all have a role to play, and they all require your new digital platform to allow you to participate in the evolving world of business, government, and consumer ecosystems, because ecosystems are becoming the next evolution of change in the emerging digital world. The digital revolution is reshaping the way we live our lives and the way we work. The challenge we all face today is coping with the pace of the change in the digital environment. Change is coming in many ways. To begin with, there's the tidal wave of new technological advancements, like the growth of IoT. There's the ever-changing need for new skills and new training. Then there's the way society and social media are affecting and changing our business culture. And finally, there's an urgent need to constantly find new ways to bring ideas and products to market faster than ever before. We will dive into each of these areas with more detail later, but for now, let's examine a technological example of exponential growth. You guessed it, it's the Internet of Things. In 1992, there was about as many devices hooked up to the Internet as there are people living in San Jose. But today, there are more connected devices than there are people. This explosion in IoT devices isn't just from everyday consumer electronics, like cell phones, tablets, and laptops. It's due to devices and sensors that all now have IP addresses. Back in 2010, infrastructure was considered highly connected, supporting about 61 trillion connections. That was during the advent of the data center. Fast forward to today, according to a Gartner research, with everyone going to the cloud, billions more devices are connected, causing dynamic connections to emerge at a rate of 54 million per second. By 2020, these devices are expected to create 250 trillion stable connections and 63 million new ones every second. How can we keep up with this? Well, to begin with, we must ensure that we are prepared to have the right skills and resources at hand to tackle the increasing digital demand. To do this, research suggests that there are three main forcing functions or pressure points. The first is expertise. According to another Gartner survey, in 10 years, the skills and knowledge in our organizations will have little resemblance to that of today. Old knowledge will be usurped by new ways of thinking about digital. Second is STEM. The U.S. Department of Commerce, Economics, and Statistics predicts that by 2018, 7 out of 10 jobs will require skills in science, technology, engineering, and math disciplines. And third is digital strategy. A joint management review conducted by Deloitte and MIT cites that more than 70% of people across all age groups want to work with organizations that are digital leaders or who are digitally enabled. If you're not keeping up, you may become irrelevant. These pressure points may lead us to rethink our own organizational culture. Speaking of culture, the culture of an organization is simply how people think and act in an organization on a daily basis. Our employees make up who we are as an organization, and they have a great impact on our corporate culture. The explosion of the digital world, coupled with the introduction of social media technologies, is fostering a new paradigm in business cultures in several ways. The first is participation. Everyone is continuously involved in the contribution process to share news and to give feedback. Second is openness. Barriers are small, the content is reachable and open to conversation. The dialogue is important, and you offer information, but you also receive feedback. Third is community. Common interests, hobbies, passions are creating groups where you can share all of these. And fourth is connectedness, permanent connection, links between people, resources, lifestyles. These are the things that keep people in greater contact with one another than ever before. These key attributes are affecting change in corporate cultures everywhere, and one coping mechanism for adopting this type of change can be found in the values of lean, agile leadership. According to Solutions IQ, a provider of agile solutions for business and technology, lean, agile leaders are lifelong learners, managers, teachers, and coaches who help teams build better systems through understanding and exhibiting the values and the principles and the practices of lean, systems thinking, and agile development. Under this construct, a leader must do several things to include lead the change, be lifelong learners, develop people, inspire, align, and minimize constraints, and decentralize decision-making. So our suggested engagement strategy is to build a new digital platform, an infrastructure that societies use to interact, sense, engage, and decide. Treat IT as an asset. It has value. Gartner calls this emerging discipline of valuing information infonomics. It's not something of the future. In fact, this is happening today in various industries, in commerce, and in the public sector, and in large and small enterprises. Reorganize and shift your business culture is the third. Organize your organizational culture was formed over years of interaction between the participants in the organization, when people in an organization realize and recognize that their current culture needs to transform to support the organization's success and progress, change can occur. And fourth, embrace leaner and more agile approaches to business strategy and technology alignment. And finally, allow everyone in your organization to become part of the digital leadership team. This provides them with a sense of purpose and helps to drive innovation. So now that I've set the context, Dr. Cherinka will dive a little deeper into these areas, focusing on digital business value and how to get there. Dr. Cherinka.
Thanks, Joseph. So good morning, everyone, and welcome. So continuing with this theme, with the context that Joe just established for us, my goal today is to go a little bit deeper into some of these concepts, in particular to discuss this notion of driving digital business value in this digitally enriched world that Joe talked about. So specifically, I will go a little bit deeper with respect to building, what it means to build a digital platform as part of an overall strategy and a digital ecosystem. Setting that right culture within your organization so that you can interact better, not only internal to your company, but outside to all of your partners. And preparing your future for your talent pipeline for the future in terms of skills and talent. And then finally, bring it back with talking about lean, agile leadership and what that means in practice. So let's begin with talking about this model of the digital platform. As Joe mentioned, it encompasses how businesses operate, sense, engage, interact, and make intelligent decisions in an increasingly digital world. To better understand this, it's important to look at how we got here, what that digital evolution has been, and that journey we've been on. Historically, if you look to the far right on the slide, you had your traditional IT systems at the core. Systems like CRM, ERP, or other core business systems. But over the past 10 plus years, we've seen a nexus of forces coming together and trending in industry that have driven change for business and organizations. Forces like the cloud computing model, mobile, social, for example. All of these really are at the heart of driving the focus on information as the core element for business interchange and intelligence. But now, more recently, we see new forces, such as the integration of the physical world with smart things and sensors everywhere, driving the need for new business outcomes, which also heighten our need and our focus on information. They also offer value and complexity, right? So this is very valuable, focusing on the information, but as we can see, you hear a lot in the industry about big data. It is a very complex problem when you talk about the volume, velocity, and variety of all the data that's out there, and then you add veracity in terms of trust and security. It's a complex issue. So then this creates a need further to improve and automate information exchange in general. So there's this emphasis on building ecosystems of partners to conduct business in new ways. And this is accomplished by building application programming interfaces or services that support these interchanges. And we'll talk a little bit more about this. But effectively, to really embrace this model, where do you start? You start with looking at your core IT and how can you renovate that. And to do this is really going to require a change in mindset and to think differently from how we used to think of traditional monolithic IT systems and building those to more of a modern service-oriented model where you're providing services and microservices in particular as the new foundational primitives to support how humans and your computer systems interact and exchange information. Once you shift your mindset towards services, the next step is to build this platform in a way to enable interaction between your employees, the things that they work with, the customers, and your business partners. And so we're going to take a little bit deeper look at each of those. So let's consider IT systems. High-performance IT systems, as we know, are crucial to the success of many organizations, enabling employee and core business processes. Historically, those included your networks, your data centers, and applications that provide core automation to support the business process. But now they need to be modernized for this new digital platform to account for the fact that most applications, or many applications, are migrating toward mobile and social-based. Much of the platform is actually moving toward the cloud. Much of our data has become pervasive and accessible and open to everyone. And there's clearly a shift from thinking of a back office IT department to more of a client and customer experience focused. So this means you now have to manage cloud, mobile, social, and data, i.e. that nexus that I mentioned, while still investing in your resilience and in your recovery plans so you can have a safe and secure IT footprint for your business in the future. So let's consider customers. The digital customer experience may be the only one you now have with your customers. It's now the norm for how you engage in this digital world. And it's one that includes an integrated multi-channel approach. Examples of this include the various touchscreens that we have in all of our devices. Each device has multiple ways to interact and multiple actions it can support. We're seeing the introduction of augmented and virtual reality finally become consumerized. And you have ambient or embedded customer experiences that are starting to happen. You can kind of say that we are entering the experience economy, whereby you earn customer loyalty through digital moments that you have with your customers so that you can better understand their desires and build relationships. Effectively, for businesses, this becomes the new competitive differentiator in how they understand their customers' intent and are able to quickly and create new experiences that help them solve problems perhaps the customers didn't even know they had yet. We've talked a little bit about the Internet of Things. Again, these enable how your organization senses and acts in the real world. Having success with things, though, will require having a mix of disciplines, as there's a need to blend your traditional engineering approaches with a hardcore computer engineering, considering two different perspectives, right? Think of the consumer as well as the enterprise. A consumer-based IoT environment is going to move very quickly and randomly at the whim of public culture. On the other hand, in contrast, your enterprise IT environment is going to change at large across public environments and evolve much more slowly, but in larger numbers. So as we have seen, there is this exponential growth of connections. So to support those connections, the core components of your IoT platform will need to cut across devices, processes, applications, and data. This brings us to business intelligence and the need for constant enterprise situational awareness and analytics at all levels. However, the domain of intelligence is more than just analysis. It's actually about how your systems learn and decide independently where your data is not where the action is, but rather algorithms are there to determine what those actions are. And algorithmic intelligence then becomes driven by programs, and based on artificial intelligence, it's become a core technology that you need to think about and insert into your platform. Effectively, this means information becomes the new code base. And machine learning and AI will help to create the results that businesses will trust, maybe even unsupervised at some time. But for organizations to really take advantage of that, they'll need to change their approach to organizational insight and employ new systems, but also employ skilled people to train these systems. Finally, there's the digital ecosystem. These are independent business networks offering innovation and productivity benefits to all of their members by using electronic interchange. And to support that interchange, at the heart, there's a need to interact with, as I mentioned earlier, APIs. Those APIs need to be built upon a common infrastructure, and they'll provide simple connection points which others can build capabilities upon. So effective ecosystems develop complete APIs for customers, partners, suppliers, managers, developer communities, so that they all can work together to quickly create new capabilities, services, and those digital experiences. APIs effectively become the new lifeblood of the ecosystem and your IT footprint as well. Okay, so let's step back for a moment from the technology details and discuss some of the organizational aspects required to successfully leverage the digital platform for value. And I'll do this by starting about culture, because that's very important. Setting the right culture for an organization, trying to be successful in the digital business world, really starts with strong leadership that's willing to think and act differently by recognizing and adopting cognitive diversity across their organization, as well as embracing bimodal thinking throughout. And we'll explore this some more. As we know, there's many forms of diversity. Diversity in the workplace promotes individuality within the organization and acknowledges that every person can contribute with different, creative, and new ideas or solutions. For example, diversity within a workforce can help in building a stronger brand. It can help increase creativity and problem solving. It can encourage personal growth and development, and it will also help the organization in attracting and retaining top talent. But we want to focus on cognitive diversity. The power of having cognitive diversity in the workforce is the same power that companies try to attain through strong leadership and great communication. But while team, gender, culture diversity is important, cognitive diversity looks for people who have different ways of thinking. They have different skills, different mindsets, and there's a total emphasis on understanding the natural behavior in the digital environment. This means having a team that is internally competitive on both an analytical and emotional level. And this is hard to manage, but if you can successfully do so, it can be a very powerful tool for breakthrough business outcomes. So related to this is the notion or concept of bimodal thinking. And to consider this, it's important to discuss bimodal IT. And the Gartner Corporation defines bimodal IT as the practice of managing two separate coherent modes of IT delivery, one focused on stability and the other on agility. So for example, mode 1 IT is considered your more traditional and sequential IT. It emphasizes safety and security, and today nearly 75% of our organizations are mode 1 organizations, using popular technologies such as client-server computing, email, legacy enterprise apps, and databases, et cetera. But on the other hand, mode 2 is considered exploratory, nonlinear, and emphasizes agility and speed. So about 2/3 of the organizations, according to Gartner, expect to be half or more in mode 2 within the next 5 years. So it's clearly something important that we need to keep our eye on. And popular mode 2 technologies include the web, mobile devices and apps, hybrid cloud computing, as well as agile lean development methodologies. I like this because it's another way to think about bimodal AT is thinking of the analogy of marathon runners and sprinters, right? Both approaches are deeply different, but both are essential. At a highly abstracted level, bimodal comes from the idea that in some organizations, it's actually perhaps unrealistic to assume that one approach or the other is the way to go. In some environments, it's just doesn't make any sense to actually switch from one to the other. There's a lot of research recently that kind of shows that adopting both approaches, mode 1 and mode 2, and combining them is actually a much more effective approach. And this change in thinking is a major hurdle for companies who want to embrace this bimodal approach. Because while it's complex, the value of having them can, support one another, can actually have significant impacts. Research shows there's a number of advantages if an organization actually can, achieve this bimodal workforce. Things like agility, a better alignment of your IT and business, efficiency and reduced time to market and costs are just some of those. Conversely, research also shows or highlights a number of inhibitors that could be challenges or barriers to actually achieving a bimodal IT workforce. From not having enough knowledgeable staff out there. A lot of organizations have siloed IT architectures, so that presents challenges in migrating those. And then you have your compliance and management issues as well. So this kind of brings us back to bimodal thinking, extending that concept of bimodal IT to cognitive diversity. Mode 1 workers represent your workforce that are experience-based. Mode 2 would represent a workforce that embraces risk-taking and offers disruptive new thinking and ways and solutions. So organizations that can effectively balance a mix can greatly improve their ability to harness the benefits that we mentioned earlier. So how do you actually go about building an IT workforce, bimodal workforce? I think it's important to discuss how to prepare a pipeline for your future skills and talent. And I'll just do so by offering 5 steps that we found effective in our organizations. The first step really is just make it a priority. Elevate looking for the right skills and talent and developing those within your workforce a priority. But then you need to think about where do you go? You have your employees, you have a workforce. You need to think about a long runway for this career development. A short, medium, and long-term strategy to build your skills and talent for this digital future that we're talking about. Then to do that, step 3 is really about being willing to explore new models to grow that talent and new work models for making progress. That could actually help to increase your effectiveness and speed up the development of that workforce and what that workforce does, the business solutions. So you're probably familiar with a lot of the common approaches such as teaming and bringing in subject matter experts and partnering them with your employees, or the use of think tanks. But a lot of companies are now migrating towards some of these newer approaches of actually inserting hackathons and crowdsources in their work environments, so as a way to spark innovation. The point is really of this is just to get you to experiment, take some chances and risks with some of these new approaches and experiment with what works for you. Step 4 then is to really bolster your talent through having an active STEM outreach program, and we've discussed our outreach in the previous sessions. But it's important to do this at the high school and the university level. And so events, helping to get involved in hosting events like hackathons and having research labs that you can bridge with academia and with industry, offering real-world experiences, that's really key, and it helps to build that pipeline. And then finally, step 5 is actually, within an organization, build a partnership with your HR, whoever your HR leadership is, or your strategist, and work with them as the digital leader in your organization to do things like improve your workforce analytics, the planning, the professional and development and strategic development activities, the workforce itself or the work environment, the use of devices, putting in good policies that are really conducive to the digital world. Okay, I'll shift gears one more time and let's talk about embracing lean, agile leadership. So much like George Washington's leadership ability to make great things happen with lean methods under harsh conditions when he crossed the Delaware, it's very important for today's digital leading organizations really to embrace lean leadership models as well that help them in adopting better practices that have measured results. They minimize bureaucracy, they provide transparency and encourage innovation at all levels for continuous improvement. And a key model to doing that is also known as boundary management. And this refers to refining what your management does. It helps to reduce your, supervision and the need for control while ensuring performance. Effectively, boundary management creates a highly responsive organization that really doesn't require extraordinary levels of management skill or strategy, but it creates a setting in which individuals and groups can manage their own activities to achieve a set of results. There's a number of roles, key roles that an agile leader can play and should play and perform across an organization supporting managing a digital workforce. First, being involved in personal and team development to help build a high-performance team and support them in evolving system practices and solutions across the organization. There's leading program execution by helping to build agile milestones and getting involved in the road mapping process and assisting in systems engineering processes. There's providing alignment of goals and objectives which is fostering working across all stakeholders toward a common vision. There's being a strong advocate for transparency, to promote open and honest communication and encourage the teams in your organization to freely innovate, experiment, and actually even fail on occasion. And then to build in quality throughout that, be that leader that's building in and focusing on quality throughout the whole entire project lifecycle and promoting agile methodologies. So, in summary, Joe and I have presented a strategy that we feel will help to drive digital business value through culture, diversity, and lean agile leadership. Today, we expanded on a new digital platform, highlighting some of its challenges and to its adoption and its use in driving value. We also offer some insight into setting the right culture, which is important in an organization, encouraging bimodal thinking, while simultaneously promoting lean agile IT leadership to help ensure success. So how can you get started? Well, here are some of the steps that you clearly can take in your organization. But effectively, today we've provided a model for driving the business value. Hopefully you are prepared for this digital explosion that we talked about, because we do know that Dr. Kalias is prepared. So, we had to do that, Najib. This concludes our presentation. We are going to, Najib did ask us to hold questions for the end. All three presenters will come back up to the front, and also all the slides for the presentations will be made available as part of the videos. So, anyway, thank you.